Double male lead+Qiangqiang+Narcissus, Thriller+Game+Escape, contemporary social animal Xiao Shiying fell into a deep well with a manhole cover stolen by a wicked ghost on a dark and windy night. When I woke up, I found that I was forced to participate in a terrifying game where I was risking my life. Xiao Shiying silently took out his phone among a group of frightened players and took a selfie of the audience full of malicious words, with a caption to post on his social media. At the age of 22, I successfully traveled and my future is promising. Why isn't there an internet connection? This game is too inhumane, I reported it. Later on, he looked at the humanoid bug in front of him with an eerie gaze, ignoring the rules and clearing the levels all the way, and asked. So, did you steal the manhole cover of the alley where I came home? Someone looked at him innocently, serious. It's all. Chapter 1. Who's stolen the well cover? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Late at night. The cold wind is piercing. The white birch trees on both sides of the road have long been bare, with layers of plastic film wrapped around their trunks and mercilessly twisted into donuts by hemp ropes. Xiao Shiying, wearing the same down jacket, was blown by the cold wind of the late night and shrunk her neck in the cold. She reached out and struggled to pull the zipper of her clothes around her neck with her gloved fingers. The exhaled white air forms a mist at the collar, and when the wind blows, it becomes even colder. Xiao Shiying, 22, just entered society as a small vegetable chicken, a newcomer who failed to rectify the workplace. Today is another day of unpaid overtime without any unexpected exploitation by the leadership. Xiao Shiying sucked on his frozen red nose, his disheveled black hair covering his eyebrows and eyes, restrained by a red knitted hat on his head, without any pitiful drifting in the wind. Madan. If it weren't for the skinny boss working overtime again, he would have been lying in bed with the air conditioning on and playing games by now. With a gloomy face, Xiao Shiying was burning with anger before being extinguished by the merciless cold wind. It's so cold, hurry back, he muttered to himself, his pitch-black eyes moving. Okay. Xiao Shiying's figure gave a fierce pause, and then quickly walked up again. The night wind was very noisy, constantly pouring in from under his black down jacket. After taking 2 more steps, I couldn't help but put my hand under my slightly warmed armpit. That can be said to be the warmest place except under the hat. Feeling comfortable and exhaling a breath of white air, Xiao Shiying turned the next corner and turned into an alley. This alley is pitch black and particularly quiet, as if the stray animals that usually forage in the trash can have been frightened by the cold wind and hid. Xiao Shiying walked in with familiarity, and the echo of his footsteps became particularly loud in the alley, which also dispelled his slight unease. He covered his hands and didn't even take out his phone to turn on the flashlight. He just walked forward smoothly in the direction he remembered. He dare not say anything else. He has been walking this alley for over a year now, and even with his eyes closed, he can tell the way home. Without much else to say, this is called the confidence of the community animal. When I'm tired from overtime, I can even touch my home with my eyes closed. The alley is narrow. It's warmer than outside. The only quiet sound was his steady footsteps, and occasionally there was a faint cold wind blowing in his ear. This kind of environment made Xiao Shiying couldn't help but yawn, and his pitch-black eyes emitted a hint of watery light, bright and lively. He has already decided to go back and soak in the bathtub with water to relax his old bones. Sitting for a long time without exercising, he is destined to suffer from spinal disease at a young age. I have envisioned everything in my mind. Unfortunately, his idea is destined to die young. Just as Xiao Shiying walked peacefully home with her long legs. A lonely well has lost its manhole cover today. And randomly selected an innocent, lucky one to accompany it through this cold night. Xiao Shiying's head was dazed and heavy. I opened my eyes in a daze, but my eyes were blurry. I waited for a while before my line of sight returned. He stared blankly at the yellow light bulb with a spider web above his head for several seconds before finally sitting up. He remembered. He was swallowed by a well in the alley where he usually takes a shortcut home. For the great intelligence of stealing manhole covers to reduce merit in this year, Xiao Shiying calmed down for a while after his small heart pounded when he fell. He silently raised 2 middle fingers and asked for the family genealogy of his entire family after searching his heart and soul. Covering his slightly painful head, Xiao Shiying clicked and looked around. The only tool for illumination in the pitch-black area is the yellow light bulb, and there is no trace of its outline when reaching out, nor can one see how much space there is. Is this the bottom of the well? He stood up and looked around, unable to see anything. Just as his consciousness had recovered, his head was still a bit confused, so he foolishly lifted his foot and walked forward. The result was a loud bang. The tip of his nose and forehead collided directly with a hard object, and he bounced back to the ground in a state of stress. His buttocks suffered huge damage, and the pain almost made him burst into tears. Ow! He covered his head from the second injury, and now he was completely awake. Standing up with one hand covering his buttocks and rubbing his sore nose. He reached forward and touched something that looked like a wall with his fingertips, but the touch was very smooth, as if it had been painted with latex paint. Xiao Shiying is not sure, is there still time to think that the funding for this bottom hole operation is so sufficient? Do you still have a paint job? He walked around in other directions without believing in evil, touched the surroundings, and found that they were all like this. It's not the well-bottomed underground passage he imagined, with all directions connected. But it was very narrow, very small, quiet and silent, he couldn't even hear his own footsteps, quiet and eerie. Xiao Shiying's nose twitched, and the surrounding air was normal, without any odor or moisture. His pitch-black eyes suddenly became a bit gloomy, and his indifferent expression on the face became indifferent. He stared at the darkness in front of him, as if he could see a hole. Not at the bottom of the well. He was trapped in a square box about 2 meters long and 2 meters wide. Not too cold, Xiao Shiying, wearing an ultra-long down jacket, soon felt hot. He stood silently in place for a while, his eyes twitched slightly, and his expression regained. With a regretful expression, he grabbed his hat off and messed up his hair. He muttered softly, "What should we do? What should we do? Yes, and there's also a phone." He took out his phone. Her fair face turned red due to some nervousness, and her eyes were also red. Upon closer inspection, there was no signal. After all this fuss, it's even hotter. Xiao Shiying stood silently for a while, still taking off some of his equipment. He threw his hat, scarf, gloves, and 2 hot water bags in his pocket onto the ground. Then he straightened up and gave himself a boost. He needs to go up and check if there are any ladders around him to see if he can climb up and save himself. He is still so young. It's a pity to die young. Besides, I haven't taken any of the 4 days off this month. Absolutely not. Damn it, blood loss. Xiao Shiying raised his hand and groped for it. The light bulb seemed to be of particularly poor quality, and it only covered his head, with no other area of view. Like the holy light shining brightly. He hates that he's not bald, maybe he can still reflect light and reflect around him. Thorn. Thorn. The sound of electricity comes from above. I'm super. Just when Xiao Shiying timidly withdrew his hand and secretly thought to himself that he wouldn't have had such a bad luck of encountering electric leakage. Suddenly, white light appeared around, and the entire field of vision lit up, like a glass ball suddenly illuminated by a strong flashlight. The entire space was emitting light. Xiao Shiying instinctively raised his hand to cover his eyes, but he was still a step too late and was hit by the white light. His eyes were throbbing with pain, and with his eyes closed, he could still see various colored spots. He closed his eyes and his ears heard a noisy noise coming from far to near. Wow, look at our new delicious food. Wake up. Ha ha ha, look at those weak humans, they're all scared out of their wits. Hey, there's still one who's peeing, ha ha ha. Kill those who wet their pants. The organizer, this kind of person affects the taste. Ha ha ha, let's see if the organizer cares about you. Oh my, this group of humans seems to be pretty good, let me take a look. Several of them seem to be eating well. Ha ha ha. What should I do? I can't wait anymore. The surroundings suddenly became lively as if they were a vegetable market. Chapter 2. Successful Crossing, Promising Future. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xiao Shiying was blinded by the light and couldn't open his eyes, his gaze turning red. I barely opened my eyes but didn't see anything, it was still a bright white light. At this moment, the situation is like a superstar being hit by a dazzling spotlight, with fans around cheering enthusiastically. But what these fans are cheering for is another batch of food that can be eaten. Xiao Shiying calmed down for a while before the white light faded away. Once again plunged into pitch black. And the 4 square meter transparent wall around him became the only luminous body. Dim, transparent. Xiao Shiying finally saw clearly that he was wrapped in a transparent square, but when he first touched it, he didn't touch anything. Underneath my feet is endless darkness, surrounded by what seems to be a huge arena. He was mixed with thousands of other blocks in the central area of the arena, like a tribute presented by a greedy demon offering table by believers. Senses are scrutinized, valued, and plundered at the intersection of vision. This feeling is really bad. Countless viewers hid in the darkness, passionately cheering and discussing, their colorful eyes flickering with greedy and bloodthirsty light. Xiao Shiying stood in place, looking at these things beyond his cognitive range. Suddenly, his subordinate's consciousness reached into his pocket. The next moment, the latest phone appeared between his slender fingers. Flip, unlock, and turn on the camera. Click. The crisp sound of taking photos rang out, engulfed by the surrounding sounds, without causing any ripples. Xiao Shiying looked at various beautiful pupils outside. Slightly pulling the corners of his mouth, his pitch-black eyes lit up, slightly curved, and he compared his scissor hands to the camera to take a photo. And accompanying text. At the age of 22, successfully traversed, with a promising future. What is that guy doing? The audience noticed him. For most people who curse, scream wildly, beg for mercy on their knees, and cry uncontrollably. Xiao Shiying was like an outsider, holding her phone in both hands and squatting excitedly against the transparent wall, forming a ball of herself. With his head down and fingertips moving rapidly, he seemed to be living quietly in another space. Ha! I guess he was scared silly. Look at him like that, he probably hasn't reacted yet and is ready to ask for help, ha ha ha. It seems that humans do have such connections. Oh, stop talking, the game is about to start. It's so exciting. After chatting for a few moments, the audience seemed to prefer watching the fearful expressions of others. They quickly looked elsewhere and laughed happily. Xiao Shiying exhaled and slowly lowered her hand. The phone emitted a faint glow. The circle in front of a photo on the screen slowly rotates. Eventually, it slowly turned into a red exclamation mark. Sending failed, please check your network connection. A sense of vibration appeared, and Xiao Shiying lowered his head to take a glance and silently clicked off the pop-up window. Sure enough, can't it be posted? He thought, as expected, and his face didn't even bother to make unnecessary expressions. Without the obstruction of pop-ups. He paused, his gaze involuntarily falling on the last message sent by the recipient on his phone. Red heart, I miss you so much. The pitch-black eyes moved. Xiao Shiying didn't reply to this news yesterday, but there was no need to reply either. Finger clicked on the text message, and the delete pop-up window appeared. After quickly clicking with his fingers, Xiao Shiying put his phone back in his pocket and sat down on the ground with a big thud. Thorny. Thorny. The sound of electric currents above his head echoed again, and Xiao Shiying looked up. Did it leak electricity again? A projection screen appears below the light bulb, not large, about the size of a tablet. On the screen, there is a huge bird face occupying it, and the colorful colors resemble a bunch of unsignalized TV garbled code. Cough cough. Hello everyone, my dear audience friends. The sound of parrots seems to have a comedic effect. Stupid and sharp, it can effectively stimulate the senses of a group of demons. As expected, as soon as its words were spoken, the surrounding audience immediately became even more enthusiastic and boiling. The parrot used its colorful wings to tidy up the red bow tie on its chest like a mockingbird. With his chest held back and his feet moving, he adjusted his posture. His idol was full of burdens and he enjoyed the enthusiastic cheers around him. It cleared its throat and spoke again. Cough cough. I believe dear ones can't wait any longer. Without further ado, let the beloved Xiao Wumi introduce you to this episode's game guests. As you can see, these 17,003 people on the field are the lucky guests of our game. We have carefully selected them by our great organizers. We ensure that each one is of human flesh as the freshest and most emotionally rich and complex delicacy. We will never disappoint everyone. Greed is the best food, wealth, lust, regret, pursuit, and dream. As long as you can imagine it, there is nothing we cannot do. Humans gathered because of greed. Let's indulge in this battle game. Now, I announce. The game is officially starting. The cheers were like a tide, and the lights came from the soles of the feet, illuminating every figure hidden in the transparent cabin. Xiao Shiying only then noticed that there were many people around him who were suddenly brought in. These people dressed differently, some even came over wearing only a pair of underwear, frozen and unable to take care of themselves, squatting on the ground with a runny nose and rubbing their arms. After 2 seconds of silence, Xiao Shiying decisively picked up the newly unloaded equipment from the ground and installed it back. For no other reason, he bought them all in real gold and silver. What if they fall off and don't come back? The parrot's voice continued, this time facing the frightened human face. Its round bird eyes are half open, as if disdainful. I believe our dear ones must have many doubts, so Xiao Wu will explain to us. The place where you are is your safe house. Every time you complete a game, the space inside the safe house will expand, providing you with enough oxygen and living space. In every game, there is a clearance condition, and only completing the condition is considered a successful challenge. If you are lucky enough to survive in a game but don't meet the requirements, then unfortunately, you only have one chance to enter the game again. If you fail again, I'm sorry, your safe house will shrink infinitely, just like this. Bang! Parrot Xiao Wu made an explosive gesture with his wings, squinting his eyes and boasting onomatopoeia in his mouth, taking the audience's emotions to new heights. In order to more vividly demonstrate the punishment mechanism of the safe house, Xiao Wu waved his wings. A transparent and secure square house appeared in mid-air, enough for everyone to see. A red apple was placed inside the square house. With a piercing scream from Xiao Wu, the safe house suddenly spun and flew high, becoming smaller and smaller in front of everyone. The apples inside were squeezed into mud. After the final contraction of the safety square house to its extreme with a bang, the apples were fried into a sky full of puree. Chapter 3. First round of games. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Everyone turned pale and couldn't help but start thinking about this apple. As long as the game doesn't pass, then this exploding apple, is this their ultimate fate? Xiao Wu seemed very satisfied with the scene he saw, and his voice was filled with joy. So, I believe dear ones have understood the rules of the game. I advise you to cooperate obediently, don't make meaningless struggles. Great. I think my dear ones must be eager too. So, next, let me explain the first round of game rules to you, Xiao Wu. Ahem, the first round of the game. You can't see me, each 100 people enter the game in groups, and after entering the game, there will be half an hour of preparation time. You need to find all the places you can hide and hide. Half an hour later, our hungry hunters will set off to search for your whereabouts. What you need to do is try your best to avoid their sight. Don't be seen by them. If caught, it will become their dinner. Hee 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 hee. As for the rules, as it is our first time participating in the game, we hereby offer benefits, which are: there are no rules in this round of the game. Parrot Xiao Wu became more and more excited as he spoke, as if he had even broken his voice. You just need to, at all costs. Live on. The audience below screamed, as if responding to its words. Just accompanied by screams are curses full of malice. Go to hell. Die. The malicious voice echoed around, neat and uniform. Accompanied by increasingly enthusiastic cheers, the parrot flew high and circled over 10,000 people. Countless gold powder scattered, like the opening of a welcoming ceremony. And as it gradually rises to high altitude, transparent square houses slowly floated up and began to spin. Getting higher and higher. Getting higher and higher. Amidst the screams of everyone, their gaze fell into darkness. Xiao Shiying only felt like she had entered a drum washing machine, feeling suffocated and more dizzy. He successfully vomited at the moment he landed on the roller coaster, feeling a bit dizzy. He didn't have dinner and only vomited some sour water, leaving his stomach empty as if it were burning. Relieving the dizziness that had darkened in front of him, Xiao Shiying reluctantly stood up and looked around. This seems to be a two-story hotel, decorated with grandeur, but the space is very cramped. The crystal chandelier hung above their heads, but it was very close to them, with a height of less than 3 meters, as if it could be reached by jumping up. 100 players were all assigned to the lobby, surrounded by a bright atmosphere. The walls were adorned with reflective golden mirrors, revealing their panicked faces clearly. The hall is very spacious. Even after accommodating 100 people, it only occupies a quarter of the space. There is a fountain of Cupid in the center of the hall, and a golden statue of Cupid holds a sword in the direction of the door, with a smile on its face. No matter how you look at it, it doesn't seem like a normal hotel layout, but rather exudes a sense of strangeness. What should I do? I don't want to die, I don't want to die. A visibly frightened cute girl covered her face and started crying. She was still wearing a camisole nightgown, with a seductive figure faintly visible. Unfortunately, no one is willing to appreciate this beautiful scenery at this time. The noisy crying of cute girls made people even more annoyed, and they were immediately pushed aside by a man with a hot temper who grabbed their hair. Shut your mouth, his mother, and keep buzzing like a fly. The cute girl sobbed a few times and looked at him eagerly, afraid to speak again. At this moment, no one has any intention of seeking justice. They come from all over the world and have been suddenly brought here. Everyone can't understand the situation, so don't worry too much. They can't care about themselves at all. Just as they were each searching to find the exit, a crimson countdown suddenly appeared above the head of the Cupid sculpture. 00.29.58, the countdown that the parrot said has appeared. It's like pressing a button, and a sense of panic quickly spreads among the crowd. The countdown has started. Let's quickly find a place to hide. Someone in the crowd shouted, their voice breaking. Damn it, what the hell is this? Let me go out, my wife, children, and children's house are waiting for me. Amidst a crowd of panicked and abusive voices begging for mercy, a man spoke out. Everyone, wait. Look over there. Are those things the hunters that the parrot said about? His voice was urgent and immediately caught everyone's attention. Seeing that everyone's gaze had turned, the person's expression slowed down before continuing, his voice neither urgent nor slow, as if there was a hint of gentleness and persuasion. Don't be nervous, everyone. At such times, we can't panic. Look over there, maybe we can try to solve the problem behind us first. If we succeed, maybe we don't have to hide anymore. The man with golden glasses said as he slowly walked to the fountain and stood in front of everyone. He faced everyone's gaze, smiled slightly, and extended his arm to press down, as if calming their emotions. Then he reached out his hand and pointed in the direction that Cupid's arrow pointed towards. I don't know if it's because he looks like an elite in the workplace in his elegant attire, but he looks very convincing. Subconsciously, everyone turned back in the direction he pointed, and there were 5 huge horror dolls sitting side by side, seemingly just soulless toys. The body shape of giant dolls can be seen everywhere in normal amusement parks. However, the heads of these dolls are all very real, as if they were transplanted from real animals. These 5 dolls were placed side by side in what should have been a revolving door, which turned into a huge iron cage to isolate them from the player. It was this iron cage that seemed to give everyone a sense of security, and they quickly gathered around to look at these dolls. These are hunters. I only see crocodiles, frogs, and snakes, what else are they? Someone trembled, still a bit afraid, as these things did seem intimidating. I saw it before, but I was determined to hide quickly. Now I feel like what that man said makes sense. Why don't we try to get started first? Yeah, there are so many of us. We can definitely do it together. You see, they still have weapons in their hands. Ah. How could they be dark red? Then, it shouldn't be dried up with blood. Everyone was clamoring, but no one dared to actually come forward and solve these things. Xiao Shiying was pushed to the outermost edge by the sudden crowding, like a fully automatic one. He looked around at the people and elegantly patted his down jacket, but due to poor quality, some small down feathers flew out directly. Flying under his nose, he suddenly sneezed heavily. Xiao Shiying touched his nose and rubbed it. He didn't choose to join the crowded crowd with his small physique, but took the opportunity to walk to the side of the fountain and take a look. The circular fountain pool is surrounded by 5 Roman columns, and the middle connection appears to be a transparent irregular crystal. The largest pillar in the middle has many holes, like fish scales. Fine water flows out from the crevices of the scales, not too fast or too slow, but shining brightly on each scale, as if it were real. And when he looked closer, he realized that Cupid, who was pulling a full bow at the top, was not a human leg, but a short fish tail. It's not the tail of a mermaid, but rather an ugly, very flat and smooth oval irregular fish tail covered in tiny spots. On the golden statue, those spots are like rust. Chapter 4. Attention from Lao Yin Bi. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Xiao Shiying frowned, feeling as if he had seen this tale somewhere before. However, the person who designed this scene has really bad taste. He smacked his mouth and muttered. The next moment. Wow. Just as he finished speaking, the sound of something flipping over and splashing water suddenly appeared in the pool below the fountain. It was not obvious, but he leaned in and listened closely. Xiao Shiying's eyes flickered over and his gaze stopped in the empty pool. The water there was sparkling, and black pebbles covered the entire bottom of the pool, making it crystal clear. But I didn't see anything. Not even a small ornamental fish. But the sound of water just now was truly ringing in my ears. Xiao Shiying dared to use his colleague's 20-year lifespan to ensure that he did not hear it wrong. But his gaze lingered in the pool for a while until the surface of the water became calm again, and there was still nothing. Xiao Shiying furrowed his brows, and just as he thought he had heard the wrong thing, his eyes had just raised and met a pair of eyes in the water. The reflection in the pool is not his face. Just now, the ripples shook and his shadow became no longer clear, but now it's different. He can see with both eyes. Suddenly, an indescribable coolness surged into the brain. The face in the pool was not him, but the person seemed to have been locked in an invisible place, with his hands tightly pressed against the water, his face swollen and twisted, and his body instantly turned white from soaking. His eyes were filled with fear and resentment, staring at Xiao Shiying so tightly. That kind of gaze was like questioning. Why not save him, sleeping slot? Xiao Shiying regained consciousness and instinctively retreated in fear. But I didn't notice someone standing behind me, and my back crashed straight into it. The arm was pulled and held steady by someone. Xiao Shiying breathed a sigh of relief, thanked him, and then stiffened and dodged to the side. He turned his head and met a pair of slightly puzzled and exploratory eyes. It's the man with golden glasses. He saw Xiao Shiying looking over, with a gentle and friendly smile on his lips. Are you okay? You look nervous. Did something happen? What did you see? A series of deadly questions. Xiao Shiying exhaled a breath, his body gradually warmed up, and his head gradually became clear. To calm his somewhat chaotic breathing, he said. It's nothing, my face doesn't look good, and the reflection of me on the water just startled me. I was scared to death, I thought I saw a ghost, Xiao Shiying said in a casual tone. Is that so? Your face doesn't really look good. The man with golden glasses looked at his face calmly and said without hesitation. Xiao Shiying tugged at the corner of his mouth, not intending to talk too much to this person. He wanted to find a topic to end as soon as possible, and suddenly started to fight. Haha. Who said it's not? I was pressured by the skinny boss to work continuously for several days, and I was inexplicably brought to this place. It's really unlucky. Why is it just me? The man with golden glasses stared at him for a while, but didn't answer, just smiled. There is an ancient saying that goes, as soon as you come, be content. My name is Yan Hua, and you can call me Yan Gu. Perhaps we can have the opportunity to work together in the future. Realizing that he was referring to cooperation, Xiao Shiying glanced at him and met his smiling eyes, as if he was just introducing himself. Hello. My name is Xiao Shiying and I don't have much ability. If we have the chance to escape together, Xiao Shiying buried half of her face in the collar of her down jacket, with a silly smile on her face, and said in a half-joking tone. He is not a highly intelligent talent, just an ordinary person who has been lost in the vast expanse of life. And the man in front of him is clearly a social elite, with a mixture of truth and falsehood in his words, and he looks kind to everyone. I don't know if he's pretending to be tired or not. Xiao Shiying doesn't like to deal with such people very much, because their thoughts are never revealed, and you can't guess what he's really thinking in his heart. It's like the gentle smiling man in front of me, probably thinking in my heart how to sell him. Mr. Xiao is really humorous. Yan Hua seemed to be amused by his words, and then pointed to Cupid's head as if speaking casually. 5 minutes have passed, we need to quickly go up and find a place to hide, otherwise the good places may have been occupied by people. Xiao Shiying naturally knew this. He looked at the people gathered around him and suddenly felt that he could use it to get rid of the man with golden glasses. It's not good to be cared for by such people, as they are prone to premature death. They haven't bought insurance and don't really want to try it. He showed a hesitant expression, pointing to the people still forming a circle, with a somewhat conflicted expression on his face. Don't we call them? There was a hint of hesitation and guilt in the words. Everyone is human, Brother Yan, you go up first. I'll remind everyone later. If you can help, it will be helpful. At this moment, Xiao Shiying felt that he could directly challenge the Oscar, and Tet could act. It is both classic and classic. Yan Hua seemed to have never expected him to say so, with a hint of surprise in his eyes, and then he became somewhat speechless. But it seems that my interest in him has decreased significantly. He patted Xiao Shiying's shoulder, shook his head, and said somewhat cruelly. Don't worry, if you go up with them from the beginning, the probability of finding the best hiding spot will be greatly reduced, and the relative mortality rate will increase. That's why I spoke up and asked them to see if those things could be destroyed, to catch their attention and take advantage of it. In fact, as long as you don't think a little bit, you will know how to give you a chance to break the game rules before the game starts in this situation. Yan Hua smiled indifferently and said, unfortunately, they didn't seem to have thought of that. So, even if they die, they don't have the ability on their own. Die on their foolishness. The sound of smashing came from the crowd, as if someone had already tried to open the cage and destroy the dolls inside. Xiao Shiying moved her fingers and felt some itching in her hands. He fell silent, scratched his head, and then showed a simple and innocent smile. Brother Yan, you've adapted so quickly. If you don't tell me, I haven't reacted yet. He laughed and shrank to the side. I couldn't help but cry in my heart. Nima is really annoying. Yan Hua let out a faint hum, as if he didn't want to say more to him. Turning his head, he saw that there were already several people quietly touching the stairs. His gaze flickered, and he greeted Xiao Shiying before leaving. Xiao Shiying watched him walk away and his gaze fell once again into the pool. The water in the fountain is still very clear, with black pebbles covering the bottom and no faces. Everything seems like an illusion. There can be one without two. He doesn't feel dizzy from working overtime. The face just now does exist. Xiao Shiying lowered her head and looked at the motionless pool, her eyes filled with darkness. It seems that this place seems far more dangerous than he imagined. Without further pause, 1/3 of the time had quietly passed, leaving only 20 minutes. This game is similar to hide and seek. According to normal game rules, as long as the ghost who is catching someone turns its back and silently counts for 60 seconds, it can turn back and catch someone. But now there is not only such a long preparation time. And those ghosts are also piled up like garbage, providing them for those who should hide everywhere to watch freely. What is it for? In order to let people see the monster that is about to kill them with their own eyes, and then cry for mercy. Xiao Shiying moved his rusty brain melon seeds and gave a fierce slap on his thigh. He may already know. Such a long preparation time, according to the previous group of neurotic mitochondria and the game's indulgent lack of rules. It is estimated that the 100 people this time will definitely be accompanied by unequal hiding places. If the number of people far exceeds the number of hiding places. So what kind of reaction will these people who were summoned due to greed make? Human greed is endless, but the prerequisite for human greed is the ability to survive. Xiao Shiying never believed in human conscience. Dark thoughts can instantly self-hypnotize and erase the previously established bottom line, tearing apart cruelty and indifference to flaunt. Conscience, cheap yet ridiculous. Chapter 5. The Image of Good People. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xiao Shiying is not prepared to waste any time below. He's not really a good person. After taking a final glance at the surface of the ancient well with no waves, it was confirmed that there were no restricted level images. He reached out and took out something from his pocket, finding a suitable spot to stuff it under Cupid's tail. After finishing, he turned around and went upstairs, ignoring those who were still trying to destroy the cage. The second floor is even shorter and more enclosed, with a maximum distance of only 2.2 meters from the ceiling as seen by Xiao Shiying. Xiao Shiying is 1.8 meters tall, almost touching the roof with her hand gives a very oppressive feeling. Such a hotel layout, not going bankrupt is considered a miracle. Xiao Shiying exclaimed in amazement, his hands not being honest as he walked and touched the handrail of the stairs. He rode all the way up the stairs and stretched out his hand, which was clean and dust-free. He twisted his fingertips and murmured to himself. A doll that stands nearly 2.5 meters tall, but the ceiling here is only a little over 2 meters. The handrail of the staircase is made of marble that is prone to dust accumulation, but even the corners that are often overlooked during cleaning have no dust. Xiao Shiying walked forward and looked at the ceiling. He could reach out and touch it without even having to straighten it out. After pondering for 2 seconds, I couldn't figure it out for a moment, so I put my hands back into my pockets and continued walking forward. Like a giant walking in the land of Lilliputians, feeling both suffocated and uncomfortable. It's no use thinking so much now, probably only when the game really starts can he know the answer. I just hope this answer doesn't require his life to pay for it. That's too expensive. Observing the surroundings. Above the fountain is a platform with only a huge observation glass fish tank, empty inside. There seems to be a shallow layer of water stains at the bottom, almost drying up. Extending from the platform to both sides are two narrow corridors, very dark, and one can vaguely see someone opening the doors of each room to check. He took the opportunity to walk towards the corridor on the right, and surprisingly, the first room in the corridor was a public restroom. Normally, all guest hotels are used to make rooms, except for those with high levels that waste space using public restrooms. The level of this hotel is clearly not up to par. Is there no bathroom in the room? Xiao Shiying thought. Without choosing to check first, he took out his phone and checked the time. 5 minutes have passed, and there are still 15 minutes left until the start of hunting. Xiao Shi's film and television line swept through each door. Count silently in your heart. The second floor of the hotel is not very large, and all you can see is at a glance. There are only 10 rooms on the left and right sides of the corridor alone. But it was this number that made Xiao Shiying's previous conjecture come true. If both sides of the corridor have the same number of rooms, then except for the bathroom at least 5 people should be hiding in each room. Tisk. This terrifying number of people gave Xiao Shiying a headache. It can be certain that if only one person is found in a room, the other people in the room are likely to be completely wiped out. Will the first person found be willing to die alone? This answer is unknown. Xiao Shiying did not have a hobby of gambling his life on the conscience of others. I can't go to the room, can't I hide in the restroom? What can this kind of partition with upper and lower air leaks block? His tears, cuckoo couldn't stop flowing down. Xiao Shiying let out a deep breath in silence and decided to go to a few rooms first. Although time was not abundant, it was not urgent. The door number of the first room is 206, it seems that the number of rooms on both sides is indeed the same. Pushing the door in, the person who had already been searching inside was immediately startled. Xiao Shiying's footsteps settled at the door, his gaze fixed on this person. This is a young man who is not very old and very fat. With his physique, it is difficult to find a place to hide. So his face was also very ugly, and the bed board had already been lifted. It seems that he wants to hide under the bed. Unfortunately, the solid bed under the bed is tightly filled with foam boards, so he can't hide. The fat man just looked at Xiao Shiying and continued to dig those foam boards with his hands, as if he wanted to dig out a place that was enough for him. Xiao Shiying had no intention of disturbing him or showing kindness to help. His gaze roughly surveyed the surroundings. It's a double room with 2 1.2-meter beds and a narrow half-meter hallway in the middle. The walls are covered with European-style wallpaper with messy patterns, which looks yellow and messy. Aesthetic differences. Xiao Shiying murmured in silence. As he thought when he saw the public restroom outside, there was no toilet in this room, only a wash basin and a bathtub. Although it is unclear what the significance of having such a mini bathtub in such a small bathroom is. However, after Xiao Shiying looked over at it, there was no place to hide here unless he lifted the bathtub and placed it upside down on his body. This action is clearly a blatant way of telling others. I'm here. Open the lid and get a prize. Xiao Shiying had some wicked thoughts. Perhaps this is also the reason why the chubby guy in the room looks ugly. However, the only thing that surprised Xiao Shiying was, in this room, there is a window. Windows. In a repressed and closed environment, there is undoubtedly hope. Perhaps this is a good opportunity to learn about the outside situation. Xiao Shiying quickly walked forward. The paint on the window fell off severely, and almost all of the paint surface floated on the window frame. It is obvious that such a minor mistake does not make the hotel want to spend money on repairs. Xiao Shiying's gaze fell on the window frame, unable to move her eyes for a long time, but her mind was filled with the fish tank she had just seen. Suddenly, a conjecture emerged in my mind, yet I was not very sure. But there is not much we can do now. At least, he needs to help the guy in front of him first. Seeing him come to check the window, the chubby guy had a slightly unpleasant expression and a tone that was not very good. "Don't look, fake. When I came in, I thought I could run out of the window. Who knew it was just a curtain of the sky, and the most despicable thing was that there were lights behind it. I really thought it was so bright outside. Shit, this foam board is harder than my brain seeds." The chubby young man muttered incessantly, his hands moving non-stop. Xiao Shiying saw that the bed board had been opened. There was a foam board as big as a whole mattress, but he cut out a small piece, which seemed to be much harder than the ordinary foam board. "Thank you for telling me. As a gesture of gratitude, let me help you." After saying that, Xiao Shiying squatted down to help lift the foam board outward. The chubby guy looked at him cautiously and said, "This place is so small, it's only enough for me to hide alone. Don't come and get involved. I don't hide here, I just want this foam board." Xiao Shiying was also smilingly rejected, and dutifully picked up the good man image he had long lost and put it on the ground. The fat guy looked suspicious, but it was obviously a good thing that someone could take away the foam board, which greatly reduced the risk of his exposure. After all, there is no place to hide such a large foam board, and a discerning person can see where it is. The two big men together soon got the foam board out. The fat guy didn't say anything. He stuffed the foam board into Xiao Shiying's arms, and the man took the lead. Very positive. Unfortunately, this 1.2-meter bed with his physique doesn't look like a bed. Like a coffin. The chubby boy didn't cover the bed first, but grabbed a simple square stool in the room. Once the hiding place has been found, the next step is to strive to defend the place where one can hide and not be taken away by others. Chapter 6. Is so big, it must be very valuable, right? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xiao Shiying took away the foam board as promised. He had no dissatisfaction with his attitude, or he was exhausted and could not rise to any emotion. There was a burning sensation in his stomach, and he was already a bit hungry. There was no hunger, just a burning pain. The foam board was first put in the public toilet outside. The compartment is too small for Tibetans, and the foam board cannot be put in. Xiao Shiying threw the foam board directly onto it and stuck it in the gap above the compartment. Suddenly thinking, could we also block the bottom and build a secret space for ourselves? He quickly gave up. That big hammer and electric saw are not as durable as his. After finishing this task, Xiao Shiying went to touch his pocket. I searched my whole body and finally found 2 pieces of chocolate that had been melted by body temperature in the pocket of my clothes. Xiao Shiying sighed somewhat helplessly and complained. How many times have you said that chocolate cannot be placed close to you? Also, I don't like eating almonds. Saying so, but quickly eating the chocolate. The hungry stomach finally subsided for a while, and there wouldn't be an awkward scene like shouting in the hallway with an echo. Xiao Shiying took out his phone and looked, there were still 9 minutes left. He checked the 4 rooms in the remaining row one by one, and the layout was the same. Almost everyone's idea is to hide under the bed. After all, there is no place to hide in such a shabby and aesthetically poor hotel. There were more people in the corridor, and they seemed to have failed the experiment. They rushed anxiously to the corridor, searching for all possible hiding places in each room. There were many people coming to the restroom, but everyone just came in to take a glance. After seeing the toilet with no obstructions except for the compartments, everyone ran out. Obviously, they don't think that the toilet compartment with air leakage can give them any sense of security. They don't even have a damn ventilation pipe. Xiao Shiying actually really wanted to drink water, but looking at the rusty wash basin in the toilet, he couldn't get out of his mouth and had to silently endure the thirst in his throat. He didn't think about looking around anymore, slowly walked to the platform outside, and was surprised to find a guy climbing into the transparent glass fish tank. It seems to be stuck upside down and unable to climb out, with a flushed face and bulging veins in the temples of the arms due to the force. Xiao Shiying watched the play. TSK, talented person. The man saw someone come out and quickly waved at him, shouting. Brother, brother. Dad. Do me a favor, I'm stuck. His face was anxious, obviously stuck for a while. No one passing by helped him, and he secretly poked and gloated, which was even more uncomfortable than killing him. Xiao Shiying paused in her footsteps and walked forward to pull the man out. Well, for no other reason, he's just a little curious about this fish tank. So getting rid of those who are in the way is a breeze. After the man got up, he spoke at an extremely fast pace and said that a good person would be safe all his life, then he crawled into the corridor. While walking, I accidentally bumped into Xiao Shiying and cursed while running. It seems that I deeply regret why I ended up climbing into the fish tank and wasting such a long time. At this moment, there are very few people still staying in the hall, and almost all the people left on the second floor are squeezed into the corridor, with only Xiao Shiying on the platform. Lonely. Countdown. 3.45, Xiao Shiying reached out and pushed the glass fish tank. The stone platform below seemed to be connected to the glass fish tank and could not be pushed at all. He reached out and tapped on all sides with his knuckles, all solid and without any hidden grids. Have you really watched too many TV dramas? Xiao Shiying gave up the idea of continuing to ponder whether there were any hidden secrets behind this thing. Time is running out. He stood quietly there alone, looking down at the few remaining undecided people below, poking into the cage with stool legs he had obtained from somewhere. The crimson countdown keeps beating. His red knitted hat and scarf complement each other. Under the incandescent light, the colors seemed to become even more vibrant. It seemed like time was getting closer and closer, and those people finally couldn't hold their tension anymore. Sayako rushed upstairs to avoid encountering the monster released from the cage as soon as the countdown ended. After Xiao Shiying and everyone else went up to the second floor, it seemed like they had been pressed a switch and immediately started moving. He turned around and took out a plastic bucket from the public restroom. The mop that was originally placed inside disappeared without a trace, and a piece of cloth from the mop head was stepped on and fell to the ground. It is estimated that someone used the handle as a weapon. He ran to the fountain in the lobby and fetched a bucket of water, carried it up to the second floor, and put it back into the toilet, regardless of whether it was spilled or not. When I come out of the toilet. Xiao Shiying saw in his spare time the sound of cursing and smashing things coming from a room in the hallway. Then he saw a person being pushed out of a room with several hands, and the door slammed shut, almost pinching the person's hand. Xiao Shiying looked at the people who only went upstairs last for a while, and naturally recognized that person. That person was shouting and cursing at the door of the room, desperately pounding the door, all the dirty words bouncing out like no money. Until Xiao Shiying walked downstairs, it was still clear in his ears. This is a catchy national delicacy. He quickly regained his senses and focused his attention. Xiao Shiying was not surprised by this situation. The reason is simple, that room. Full capacity. That's all. Looking at my phone, there was only one last minute left. At this moment, there is not enough time left to support him to run to the second floor again and find a place to hide. Xiao Shiying breathed out a breath and couldn't help feeling a little nervous. If you bet wrong. So his little life today will be handed over here. But if you don't try, do you really want to gamble on someone else's conscience? Even so, it's better to bet on oneself to win. He walked up to Cupid, whose smile remained kind. Xiao Shiying couldn't help but open his mouth and take a bite on its head, leaving a tooth mark. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he reached out and tried hard to break it off, but it was clearly a failure. He lost his face, a bit regretful. Such a big golden lump must be very valuable. Unfortunately, it's not him. Damn it. At some point, the bright red countdown turned dark red and entered the final 30 seconds of death. The dark red numbers are like blood-red roses that are about to dry up and wither, with petals called time falling into the pool water, dyeing it red as well. Xiao Shiying quickly reached out and took off his down jacket and shoes. Wrapped the hat and scarf inside the down jacket, they were thrown into a ball behind the pillar carrying Cupid. Get stuck in the final countdown. 3. 2. Waterloo. Xiao Shiying was in the last second of the blood countdown. Pinched his nose and sank directly into that fountain pool. The creaking sound of the iron cage being opened came out, accompanied by the agonizing sound of twisted metal. It seems that the cage was not opened from the outside, but was forcefully pulled open and destroyed from inside. The temperature of the pool water was very low, and Xiao Shiying's vision and hearing were severely affected. I don't know if it's his illusion, he always feels. Through the twisted water surface, the golden Cupid sculpture seems to have a very eerie face. Take a glance at him. Chapter 7. Stuck to death, why is it so watery? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xiao Shiying stared at it for a while without any change. But the more I look, the more I crave. It's really big. Despite how much he diverted his attention, the air in his chest was also decreasing. A sense of suffocation is transmitted. He can hold it for 2 minutes at the longest, which is already his limit. So Xiao Shiying can only pray that these monsters can quickly leave the lobby on the first floor and give him a chance to breathe. The fountain pool is about 1 meter deep, and the irregular crystals around it are not transparent. As long as you don't look from above the fountain, you won't even notice a person lying in the pool. Time passed by minute by second, but apart from the sound of the iron cage opening, the surroundings seemed too quiet. He dare not gamble, he can only wait a little longer, the longer, the better. Xiao Shiying closed her eyes and carefully distinguished the sounds around her. I don't know if time has broken his 2-minute record, but he can clearly sense that his head is starting to feel suffocated due to the lack of oxygen in his lungs. Consciousness also began to darken. No, we can't wait any longer. He couldn't hold on anymore, closed his eyes and quietly floated up a bit before taking a deep breath. Then, after calming down a bit, continued to sink to the bottom of the water. Time should not exceed 5 seconds. Xiao Shiying was not sure if he had just been discovered. He couldn't hear anything now, and the only thing he could feel was his constantly beating heart. If discovered now, he is confident that even without the drag of wet sweaters, he would not have the confidence to beat these monsters. Dida. There are water droplets dripping into the fountain pool. Xiao Shiying's gaze slowly turned into a pale red. The water also exuded a faint rust smell, and the liquid accidentally drunk in the mouth also had a faint sweet and fishy smell. With a thud in his heart, as the oxygen in his second lung was about to run out, Xiao Shiying sat up directly from the pool water. The sound of water dripping. Half of his body was exposed, which made him shiver uncontrollably. Xiao Shiying was panting heavily, his heart beating as if it were ringing in his ears. His ears were feeling a bit stuffy due to water ingress. Glancing around. The lobby on the first floor is already empty, the cage has a big hole, and the dolls inside have disappeared. Those eerie dolls are indeed hunters in the game. I haven't encountered the situation of leaving a hunter guarding the first floor of the pit father, it seems that these dolls are surprisingly straightforward. Fortunately, he won. Although it's just a small step. Xiao Shiying couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief in her heart, calming her breath and trying not to make any sound. He didn't forget the feeling in the water, and upon closer inspection, the fruit had already turned pink. Looking left and right, my gaze finally settled on the shaft of the Cupid pillar. The clear liquid that slowly flowed out from under the scales has turned blood red, rushing out eagerly, not as long as before. These liquids are competing with each other, as if they are about to burst the scales together. And just for a while, the pale pink color of the water had begun to slowly turn increasingly red, gradually approaching the bright red color. Xiao Shiying looked at these red liquids and felt a sticky and uncomfortable sensation all over her body. He was busy getting up while roast about who cut the main artery. With one hand supporting the nearby pillar and the other gripping the irregular crystal wall, I wanted to stand up from the fountain pool first. However, just as he stood firmly in the pool, his face suddenly turned strange, conflicted, and unsightly. The tactile sensation coming from under the feet is not a feeling of hard pebbles, but rather a very disgusting, dense, soft and slippery sensation, as if something was moving. He stepped down with one foot, not wearing socks, and the sensation of his feet transmitted directly to his brain, unconsciously revealing a layer of goosebumps all over his body. And, just now, he seemed to have crushed something under his feet. His face turned pale, and his stomach surged. The convulsions and nausea that were suppressed by chocolate surged. Xiao Shiying didn't care too much and didn't dare to stay in this eerie pool. He quickly turned over and came out. Stepping barefoot on the cold marble floor, the cold touch made his brain slightly calm. Xiao Shiying lost the desire to wear shoes, and his soles were very uncomfortable, with a sticky feeling. But when he looked over, there was nothing on the soles of his feet. Bending down to look into the pool water, the line of sight has become blurred, and in the red liquid, only dense and small black circular objects can be seen rolling and wriggling inside as if they have come to life. Xiao Shiying felt some scalp tingling. It has been a while since those monsters charged up. But he didn't hear the screams, which made him somewhat puzzled. At the same time, it also stopped the desire to go up and take a look now, wanting to wait for a moment. Don't let him go up. 5 strange and peculiar-looking big men stood in the hallway and poked their heads at him, saying, "Hey! Surprise!" Then, with a lewd smile, he punched him 2 times. Tisk, what am I thinking? Xiao Shiying felt a chill from his own imagination and quickly took a bite of his tongue to calm down. Pain struck. He shook his head, but felt a bit dizzy and unable to shake it off, making it difficult to concentrate. He didn't know if the red liquid flowing out might have a paralyzing effect, or if it was caused by his exhaustion. His heart sank, and he took another bite at the tip of his tongue. Suddenly, a bloody smell filled his mouth, and Xiao Shiying's head gradually became clear. At the same time, a loud scream appeared for only a second and disappeared instantly, accompanied by the sound of smashing doors and clanging. It seems that someone has been found. Xiao Shiying took off her clothes and pants, leaving only her underwear to wear. Her fair and warm body was completely wrapped in a black down jacket in just a moment. He took off while thinking about how to get out later. He must go to the 2nd floor. At the beginning, he noticed something. There were no exhaust vents in the bathroom and toilet, and fake windows in the room. The entire 2nd floor feels like a completely enclosed space, without any cracks. In addition, there is a shallow layer of water stains left in the tank on the 2nd floor platform, and the paint that is clearly soaked and floating on the window frame. All the clues seem to indicate a terrifying fact. Maybe it won't be long the entire 1st floor, no, maybe the entire 2nd floor will be submerged. What should we do then? They can only try their best to survive. Those who don't know how to swim have already bought a sleeper ticket in advance to go directly to the underworld. But Xiao Shiying knew it wouldn't be that simple. Just like the ghosts he saw now, there must be some problems. Rubbing his feet against the sweater he had taken off, Xiao Shiying couldn't control the disgusting feeling left on his feet and forced himself to put on his shoes. Wrap the scarf around the arm, stuff the hat into the pocket of the down jacket, and take out the things that were originally placed behind the statue of Cupid. After confirming that the scene had been fully recorded, Xiao Shiying did not check it, but stuffed it into his pocket and prepared to check the situation in the lobby on the 1st floor. The sound of liquid splashing seemed to be louder, and Xiao Shiying quickly stood a little further away to avoid being splashed by the liquid sprayed from the scales. It is estimated that in a while, this fountain will become a true fountain. The light red pool water has shown signs of overflowing. Xiao Shiying lifted her foot and found a small water stain under the sole of her shoe. Every time I walk, I make a splashing sound, which is quite harsh. Chapter 8. Isn't it, chasing him? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Xiao Shiying put away her things and ran towards the direction of the iron cage under the cover of the sound of the fountain. The iron cage was pulled open from inside, and several iron bars were twisted together with tremendous force. This power is more than enough to twist at least one person into fried dough twists. Xiao Shiying was stunned. He looked left and right and saw an iron bar inside the cage, with a slanted fracture that looked very sharp. Good thing. He quickly bent down into the cage and picked up the iron bar. I haven't had time to be happy yet and finally obtained a weapon that can provide some combat power. Looking up, a doll with a crocodile head was hunched over and lying on the railing on the second floor. With Xiao Shiying standing in the iron cage, looking at each other from afar. Xiao Shiying fell silent. In this cage, he really wanted to become a transparent person. Imagination is beautiful and the reality is. In its hand, a still rotating chainsaw was making a piercing and unpleasant sound, bringing infinite fear and oppression to Xiao Shiying. Breath stagnates, and the body reacts faster than the brain. Xiao Shiying jumped out of the iron cage the next second she saw the crocodile doll. He cannot stay here, this is undoubtedly seeking death. The crocodile's figure disappeared from the second floor, along with the sound of the chainsaw. Xiao Shiying's heart was beating fast, and fine cold sweat covered his spine. The down jacket couldn't bring him any warmth. On the left, or on the right, it seems that a monster will emerge from the stairs on both sides at any time. And this crocodile-headed monster still holds a chainsaw. This dual-killing weapon, like stacking buffs, made Xiao Shiying's expression tense. His attention was focused on the stairwells on both sides, and he stood in the middle. Whenever something rushed out, he would rush towards the other side at the fastest speed. As time passes by minute by second, a slightly dull voice came from the left. A crocodile with all four limbs on the ground and a lowered body crawled out in a twisted and terrifying posture. The crocodile seems to have maintained its previous habit of crawling forward with its limbs, but the filling in the doll's suit does not seem to be its original claws. When lying low on the ground, the doll's clothing twisted outward with its limbs piled up, but the speed of this ghost was unexpectedly fast. Xiao Shiying quickly ran towards the other side of the stairs, throwing a tantrum. I don't care if the sound or not will attract the attention of other monsters. It seems unsafe to run in any direction now. Xiao Shiying quickly scanned the corridor with residual light as she crossed the last staircase on the second floor. There is nothing. The other four have already entered the house. Looking back at the crocodile hunter who had already caught up, his gaze froze. The next moment, he didn't choose the long corridor on either side, but ran towards the stairs on the other side again. The closed environment on the second floor gave him enough room for action, but the crocodile hunter was wearing a doll suit and had to bow up to chase at such a high level. Xiao Shiying ran down the hall on the first floor again, and the water on the ground had already accumulated 2 or 3 centimeters. Stepping on it made a clear splashing sound. Passing by the fountain, a round black object rolled out and fell into a shallow puddle. Xiao Shiying's gaze paused, and as she passed by, she reached out to pick up the thing and stuffed it into her pocket. Then run towards the second floor again. Counting while running. Seeing the crocodile hunter who had clearly taken longer to catch up this time, Xiao Shiying knew that his guess was correct. This time on the second floor, he went directly to the public restroom. The doors in the bathroom have all been opened, and in the innermost compartment, something seems to be inside, making a ticking sound. The sound of footsteps coming from outside like stepping on puddles gradually approached. Xiao Shiying picked up the bucket of water he had previously collected and hid by the wall behind the door. The crocodile snout was the first to enter, with both hands gripping the wall and its mouth wide open, as if it was about to tear the little mouse that had just run into pieces. The next moment, a bucket of water poured down the head. Poured a refreshing chill. The crocodile hunter seemed a bit dazed by this bucket of water, and his passion for coming was extinguished by the bucket of water. The doll suit on Ku's body was instantly soaked in water, and its movements slowed down. Apart from its head, there was no other place to move. This also creates a comical scene where the crocodile's head and mouth keep opening and closing, its expression is fierce, and its large head wriggles unwillingly, while its body remains motionless. However, even so, the tremendous power still keeps the crocodile hunter moving forward. The bulky body and the constantly biting head slowly squeezed in. I saw the huge mouth with a fishy smell biting towards him. Xiao Shiying quickly threw away the bucket, picked up a sharp iron bar, and directly inserted it into the crocodile's wide throat. Pwai! A clear sound of entering the flesh sounded. He repeatedly pulled out and stabbed the iron bar like a machine. The crocodile's wide throat was a blur of blood and flesh. Blood and flesh splattered onto Xiao Shiying's somewhat pale face, slowly sliding down his fair cheeks. The crocodile's mouth painfully opened and closed, but it couldn't close. And Xiao Shiying, due to the force it rushed in, slammed her back hard against the compartment door behind her. Hiss. Blunt pain spreads from the spine and elbows. Xiao Shiying only felt a burning pain in her chest and seemed to have some difficulty breathing. He couldn't help but cough twice, and the crocodile's sharp teeth stayed less than 10 centimeters in front of his face. He could even smell the foul smell coming from that mouth. But more of it is the constantly emerging black liquid and bloody smell. The crocodile's mouth opened and closed a few more times, gradually becoming motionless. Xiao Shiying was not sure if this thing was dead or not, and didn't dare to be careless. He poked it a few more times and leaned against the door panel, panting heavily. The limbs of the crocodile seemed to be completely controlled by its brain, drooping limply and continuously dripping water. After waiting for a few more minutes and confirming that the crocodile's head was no longer moving, Xiao Shiying's body relaxed slightly and tilted its head aside to stand up. Lifting his foot and stepping on its neck, he pulled out the iron bar that had pierced his head. I patched its neck twice again. After it was confirmed that this thing was completely dead, it leaned against the wall with some detachment. Ouch! Finally unable to bear it, Xiao Shiying vomited. I vomited profusely and had a spasm in my stomach. The toilet door is blocked by its body, and now it is a closed space. It seems that even the air is filled with a foul and bloody smell. Xiao Shiying paused for a moment. Silently enveloping the scarf, covering the mouth and nose, only revealing a pair of silent eyes like a cold pond. Then, the indifferent chill disappeared, and instead, it brought some fear and happiness. Fortunately, I prepared a bucket of water in advance. Of course, he didn't start by getting water just to wash himself clean and wait for him to be slaughtered. And I remembered one time when I dropped a flyer into the pool wearing a doll suit. So I thought maybe I could procrastinate a while while the crying father and mother were being chased after. And the answer is obvious, surprisingly useful. Chapter 9. San value 0.99. You are listening at novel full.audio. Wait until he calms down, then carefully consider the clues he saw earlier. Suddenly, Xiao Shiying thought of a way to counter-kill these hunters. Every room has a bathtub and shower head. If you drag the bathtub to the door and put a bathtub of water on it, and at the moment the hunter rushes in, a few people work together to push it into the water, then they will never be able to crawl out again. Sure enough, the game won't turn into a one-sided massacre without any survival. But the premise of all of this is to require these people who don't even know the other person's name to work together and unite. Who took the big risk to introduce the monster into the bathroom? People are all animals that seek benefits and avoid harm. Put yourself in their shoes and think about it. Who would be willing to entrust their lives to a group of people who meet for less than half an hour? Moreover, beneath the harmless skin of humans, it remains to be seen whether they are ghosts or not. Xiao Shiying smiled and sat on the ground panting. Is this game so simple? It seems I won. He gritted his teeth and became proud to entertain himself. Sitting on the ground, I regained all my exhausted energy. Intense exercise is simply a nightmare difficulty for him as a social animal. His legs were a bit sore and numb, and now the only exit from the toilet was tightly blocked by the crocodile suit, which gave him a brief rest time. Xiao Shiying is not sure when this game will end. But the earlier he prepares, the higher his chances of survival will be. With this in mind, he is no longer prepared to sit on the ground and rest until he is exhausted. But instead, he picked up the iron bar and walked towards the bathroom. Just now he noticed that while he was sitting on the ground resting, a sound kept coming from a certain compartment in the toilet. He will still be here for a while, so he must first check the source of the sound to see if it is dangerous to himself. Xiao Shiying quickly found the compartment that made the sound. He stood at the door, his hand slightly paused, took a deep breath, and slowly opened the compartment door. I hope there won't be. Xiao Shiying once again gained a profound understanding of his crow mouth and was deeply burdened by it. The restricted level screen inside immediately left my head in a daze, followed by a surge in my stomach, and then I lay next to it and vomited. This time, I couldn't even vomit stomach acid. A headless corpse lay crooked on the toilet in the compartment, and the dripping sound of water trickled down from the fracture, forming a pool of blood on the ground. These blood are spreading along the cracks in the floor tiles, seemingly absorbed by these cracks. Closing the compartment door with one hand, Xiao Shiying leaned back against the door and took a deep breath before turning and walking towards the body of the crocodile hunter. His gaze scanned the crocodile hunter's body, but he did not find any trace of the chainsaw. Where did it go? Xiao Shiying touched the skin of the crocodile, and his hands felt cold and uneven. Opening the comical short shirt on the doll costume, a zipper appeared on its belly. My eyebrows twitched unconsciously. I have a bad premonition. His hand landed near the zipper and pressed on his stomach, soft and empty, as if there was nothing inside. With a little effort, my stomach sank deeply. Unexpected softness. Xiao Shiying hesitated as her hand fell on the zipper, but after a while, she gathered her courage and slowly opened the zipper. Don't have anything inside, don't do anything, he muttered. He has given up treatment for his own crow mouth, just a simple prayer. But he also knew that no matter what was inside, it wouldn't be a harmonious scene. But no matter what, he must find that chainsaw, it will be an absolute weapon that can save his life. The zipper was opened, and inside it was pitch black. Black liquid rushed out of the zipper, accompanied by a stench, quickly converging into a puddle on the soles of the feet. And without these liquids, the scene inside Xiao Shiying's stomach made her eyelids skip a beat. SAN value 0.99, panic skulls were piled up inside, with their mouths wide open, as if they had suffered immense shock and pain before death. The skulls had decayed, revealing a dense white skull. And these black liquids are like plump white locusts. After eating the flesh and blood clean, it turns into a puddle of liquid and flows down the skull. At a rough glance, Xiao Shiying estimated that 5 people died in the belly of the crocodile. And these people seem to be the players of this game. The players who were found. Facing the crazy scene of sand falling, Xiao Shiying's mouth twitched, but her eyes fell on the red handle buried deep inside. Fingers trembled slightly, and Xiao Shiying regretted throwing away the gloves too early. Without giving himself a chance to hesitate, his hand instantly reached into the zipper and pulled out the chainsaw that was stuck inside. Ouch! I let out a dry vomit. Xiao Shiying suddenly felt grateful that she hadn't eaten, and at this frequency, she could spit out as much as she ate. There seems to be a fire burning in the stomach. After a long pause, Xiao Shiying finally picked up the chainsaw and started looking. The chainsaw, stained with blood, appeared with a terrifying appearance, and the veins on it spread like blue and purple blood vessels throughout the entire saw body. Xiao Shiying patted her chest with a fearful expression on her face, without paying attention to the doll's suit that had lost its support and fell to the ground. One head after another rolled off the zipper and scattered on the ground. Xiao Shiying's pitch-black eyes had more brightness. He held the chainsaw and couldn't help but try the feel with his own hands. But I didn't dare to actually turn on the switch. In the dark and empty environment, a man wearing a black down jacket and a red scarf waved a ferocious chainsaw with a curious face, his eyes shining brightly. And the scene on the ground is like a bloody human purgatory. The doll's clothes dried up, and the door naturally exposed. The water on the first floor has overflowed the fountain pool, forming a river where blood meets. It's hard to say whether it was expected or unexpected. Xiao Shiying's early plans once again came into play. The foam board on the top of the toilet compartment was still safely placed there, like a needle for calming his heart. Now, just wait until the first floor is completely submerged, and then I take the foam board out and sit on it to avoid falling down. Tearing the clothes on the doll's clothes into strips, Xiao Shiying tied the iron strip to his arm, which could be pulled out with just one pull from the other hand, without affecting his movements. The chainsaw is placed beside me. Xiao Shiying felt an overwhelming sense of security in her heart. He hid in the compartment of the first toilet with a chainsaw and locked the door. Taking out the watch that had been recorded before, Xiao Shiying adjusted it a few times and breathed a sigh of relief. It was not damaged due to his fall. Click to play, and the video camera is aimed at the iron cage. After the countdown ends, the dolls seem to have something wriggling in their bodies. Then, one by one, they seem to come to life, pick up weapons, break open the iron cage, and rush out. After watching the video, Xiao Shiying held his head and pondered for a while. I looked at it again, unsure. Rather than saying it's more like fleeing the first floor hall in terror to chase these people who are hiding. What terrifying thing is there on the first floor? Chapter 10. Gay Fist Suffers Waterloo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xiao Shiying merged her legs and curled herself up in a down jacket, feeling a bit cold in her buttocks. Suddenly, I remembered that I seemed to have picked up something from the bottom of a fountain next to the pool downstairs. At that time, he was being chased by crocodiles, only having time to stuff that thing into the pocket of his down jacket. After hesitating for a moment, my hand reached into my pocket. His fingertips felt a slippery and icy sensation, and as he took it out, he clearly felt a slight movement. Xiao Shiying's fingertips sank into this black ball, and the touch of it was like jelly, but it really didn't have much appetite. The black film was very thin and seemed to wrap around a circular object, with red veins on top, as if blood was flowing through it. This thing seems to have been dehydrated for a long time and become extremely weak, just occasionally moving and letting Xiao Shiying play with it. Xiao Shiying turned the black ball with her fingertips and finally stopped in front of a very inconspicuous gap. Two fingers parted the gap, and a dilated pupil appeared in his sight. At the same time, some black liquid dripped onto his palm along the widened eyeballs and slowly slid down his hand. Eyes. Xiao Shiying was startled and wanted to throw out the things in his hand. But suddenly he thought of something and his face turned extremely ugly. Put the black ball into your pocket again. Xiao Shiying endured for a while, but still couldn't resist holding onto the toilet and spitting it out. Wiping the water stains next to my lips with my palm, I stood up with my body propped up and took a deep breath to slowly calm the convulsions in my stomach. Calm down. Calm down. Xiao Shiying began to recall all the details of entering this game from scratch. Are those audience-like people watching them now? A group of crazy people. A game with eerie powers. Everything seems to be foreshadowing from this moment on. His ordinary life of salted fish has changed greatly. A game without rules, the only hint is. Don't be seen. What exactly is to not be seen by anything, but that naughty parrot didn't explicitly say it, and even kept misleading. Hunters with amphibian heads. But unexpectedly afraid of water. Xiao Shiying murmured to herself. If it's just these 5 strange hunters. So he has already been seen. But now he didn't die, instead he found this loophole that seemed to be deliberately exposed and killed the other party. Jia. Xiao Shiying opened a crack in the door and his gaze fell on the black liquid on the ground. I lowered my head and glanced at the remaining black liquid on my hand, feeling a burning sensation in my palm. I immediately wiped my clothes. Deprived of aquatic ability, with only this black solution in their stomachs, those heads that have been rapidly decomposed into flesh and blood. If these black solutions were those black eyeballs before they dissolved. So these things must not escape this doll costume. Thinking of something, his eyes lit up and he quickly carried a chainsaw and a bucket out of the bathroom. The water had already submerged the golden statue of Cupid, and the gentle smiling face seemed to smile even more brilliantly. The tooth marks on that head are still stubbornly left. Those black balls have scattered throughout the entire first-floor lobby. Xiao Shiying looked at the water that had already flooded half of the stairs. Disappointed, he gave up on the plan to pull out these still unopened eyeballs and put them into the doll's belly. The best opportunity has been lost. If he could have thought of this from the beginning, then those eyeballs would have been pulled out by him before he could even open them. Xiao Shiying vaguely felt as if she had lost something, and her heart twitched. The corridor has long been quiet. There is no one, and I don't know how many people are still alive. These 5 monsters wearing doll costumes are not difficult to deal with. These people may have survived a lot, but because they are not sure about the outside situation, they all choose to watch from the room. Xiao Shiying looked at the shimmering waves under the light. And beneath this beautiful water surface, countless pairs of eyes seem to lurk. Just across the water surface. Stare at him quietly. Xiao Shiying, who was in a vacuum, quickly rubbed her arms and carried the chainsaw to the stairs to put it in the water and rinse it. I always feel unclean when I take it out of the pile. Xiao Shiying muttered, rinsing the soles of her shoes before turning around and preparing to return to the restroom. Turning a blind eye to the peeping in the water. His gaze paused on the statue of Cupid, and he couldn't move away. Xiao Shiying's eyeballs fell on the statue, especially envious of the golden statue. The expression on the statue's face seemed to distort for a moment. When Xiao Shiying looked over carefully, he seemed to have noticed nothing. Xiao Shiying. Someone called out his name. Xiao Shiying paused in her footsteps and looked towards the direction of the sound. A man with an axe walked out of the left corridor. The man was slender, wearing golden glasses and a striped suit, looking at him with a surprised expression on his face. It's Yan Hua. Crouching trough, old Yin ratio. Xiao Shiying cursed in her heart and wanted to silently hide the chainsaw behind her. Unfortunately, it's too late. Yan Hua's eyes rolled around his hand, and his expression was particularly gentle, with a slightly determined expression slowly speaking. It seems that I didn't misjudge anyone. You are indeed a good partner for cooperation. Xiao Shiying's mind was flooded with water, and her ears were also flooded. After listening to her empty ear, she reached out and took out her ear. The expression changed from expressionless at the beginning to somewhat embarrassed and silly, with a hint of shyness reminiscent of a pure male college student. Brother Yan. What are you saying? Do you want to be my partner? Yan Hua's mouth curved upwards, seemingly not feeling uncomfortable or angry because of his words, but giving him a meaningful look. Partner. Xiao Shiying's body shook and her scalp tingled this time. This person doesn't seem to enjoy the invincible play game. It seems that this his mother is really a gay. Apart from a down jacket, he was particularly uneasy wearing only a pair of underwear. I had no choice but to clench the electric saw in my hand and show my teeth to give him an expression that you don't want to make fun of his mother. By the way, Brother Yen, how is your situation there? Xiao Shiying diverted the topic with a loud laugh. However, he did want to know about the situation of others, so it wouldn't hurt to nag for an extra 2 yuan. Yan Hua smiled slightly, raised his hand, and showed him the axe in his hand. The one who came to my room was a frog. Not only was it holding an axe in its hand, but its tongue could also attack with great force. One person accidentally got pierced in the neck. Oh, I forgot to say that we weren't prepared to hide from the beginning. However, the ones who survived in the end. I'm the only one. Yan Hua's voice gives people a feeling of speaking confidently. Even if his words were not so friendly, it gave the impression that he had done his best, which made it hard to blame. Xiao Shiying swallowed his saliva and spoke in a conversational tone. So you're quite impressive. Do you want me to praise you?